Welcome to Mortgage Momentum. Smart guidance, real stories, better home decisions. We are your hosts. I'm Jarod Temple.
And I'm Danielle Hugunin. Thanks for joining us today. This is your go-to space for strategy, stories, and staying sharp in an ever-shifting market.
Let's jump in and get the momentum rolling. Welcome back to Mortgage Momentum. We're glad to have you here. I am Jarod Temple, your host.
And I'm Danielle Hugunin.
Today we have Maley Wilkins, who is a very influential person in Danielle's life and career. And I'm super excited to get into what you have to say. She's told me a lot about you and has said you've been inspirational to her, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. So let's get rolling.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
So all of this kind of came to mind for me when I was digging through some old emails, and I found an email from 10, maybe longer, years ago between you and I. And I read it, and I didn't even realize that version of myself anymore. And it really made me pause to think about where I am as a leader, what being a leader means, and how the heck I got here. And you're the first person that always comes to mind, because I was a 24, 25-year-old kid when you hired me. And I definitely did not believe in myself to the extent that you believed in me. And I think that that's where it starts. And as a leader today, I have those moments where you know that you're believing in someone and you see something in someone that they don't see in themselves. And then you just go from there. So, I mean, the reflection has been humbling and kind of cool. So I just wanted to talk about it.
Well, let's start with, where were you at in your career at that moment?
I was a baby. I had a couple of years of lending in the early 2000s, which meant that anyone could be a lender, if I'm being honest.
It was a little simpler time.
Mm-hmm. I moved back to Lawrence. My parents banked at People's Bank, and my dad said, you should go talk to Maley, because I was looking for a job in the mortgage industry. So I went and talked to you, and that's how we met.
And Maley, what were you doing at that point?
I was the community president, I believe. Is that right, Danielle? I was the community president at People's Bank for the Lawrence market at the time.
Banking unusual.
Banking unusual.
Okay.
That's right. Yep. And we were getting ready to start a format that wasn't tried and true and kind of went against the grain of starting a mortgage company outside of the bank. So the bank was an owner, and then we had a second party as the other owner, and we needed somebody to run that company with me. So that's what we were looking for when I met Danielle.
I mean, I was not only young, I moved back to a community, Lawrence, Kansas, where you have to be from there, you have to have gone to school there, you know, for anyone to take you seriously. And so I was from there, but only as a child. So I really didn't know anyone. And then here I am, plopped right down in the middle of a real estate office, and here you go, build a business, right? Mm-hmm. It was terrifying, to be honest. And I wasn't the only one vying for that job. And but it worked out. But I think that was largely due to you. So what do you remember about that point in the process? I mean, I don't even know if I've ever asked you, how did I end up sitting in that office?
And what was your first impression? Do you remember?
Yeah, you want to know that.
I do want to know.
I'm teasing.
No, be honest.
I don't actually remember exactly. I know that I had a vision, and I understood what this was going to take, and it was going to be different and hard, and I needed somebody that was going to be a risk taker and somebody that could work around women and men. Men mainly in the more authority type positions. And so I was looking for somebody with some fire in their belly. I was looking for somebody that was independent, that could stand up and move forward. And she just really exhibited that confidence. Always has.
See, and that therein is exactly what I'm talking about. Because what I remember is being terrified. I'm 100% an introvert. My dad taught me how to be an introverted extrovert, or, whatever. But I never would have thought that is for real, like what you saw in me. So that's a great example of definitely you seeing someone different than I viewed myself, because I was really afraid. I mean, it was a new situation and I was uncomfortable.
I think we talked. I usually would ask questions about, well, tell me about yourself, or tell me what you would do in this situation, or what. I try to get an understanding of somebody's thought process, because at the end of the day, you want somebody to follow their gut, because every situation is different. It's got different moving parts. How do you manage all that on the fly, right? You need somebody that, can instinctively think and follow their gut in a way that I would agree with.
That's fair.
Not get us in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Do the right thing for the customer, all that stuff. And she just had that passion. She had the passion for it, and I could tell.
Yeah.
Whoa. What an evolution that became. Because one real estate company became the next, and there were even more people. And, it's interesting. There was a sale. We were really small as a department at that time. And I believe one of the first sales managers we ever actually had, it was a guy, won't say his name, but I remember him telling me after really the first 12 months that I was there, Danielle, I'm really disappointed in you. I expected you to be doing more and to have closed more. And I was starting to realize that I was more of a build slowly and more consistently type of a person at that point. But I never ever felt that from you. Like, looking back, I remember you always believing in my methods and the way that I was doing things, which were definitely not the way everyone did them.
But you were building relationships, right? And you don't develop relationships overnight.
Right.
Relationships take time, and somebody has to lead the relationship. And it's kind of weird to say, but somebody is kind of taking control and navigating where it goes. And you knew where we wanted to go. You knew what it was going to take to get there. I just needed to support you while you did that on a day in and day out basis. But you were getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, question, looking back on that, were there ever any moments where you thought, I wonder if she can actually do this? Or moments where you thought, this is going to be a really hard lesson for her to learn? I want to hear these things, because I know that there had to have been some points where it was harder.
I think I never thought that you couldn't do anything, right?
Right.
I felt good about when you came to ask for coaching or help.
Right.
We were a lot alike in the fact that I didn't have to do the touchy-feely things with you.
Right.
I don't really need that.
Right.
You don't really need that. I mean, I could probably finish your sentences right from the start. You could probably finish mine. We think a lot alike like that. So it was like, to the point, let's get down to business, let's do it, let's not take too much time, and blah, 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 blah. So I thought we worked well together based on that. And you don't find that all the time.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought might keep you down would have been your outside life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Work-life balance.
Yeah.
And life is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Life is hard for everybody. And I think that giving you or anybody a platform to make mistakes, to be good one day and not so good the next day, I mean, that's just real, right? You just can't have these, really high expectations that people can't meet on an ongoing basis. It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has good days, everybody has bad days, and sometimes your life was really heavy. And sometimes, you could power through, and other times you were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I think, furthermore, being a woman in that role, in more of a man's world at the time, I had experience with that.
Yeah.
And I knew how hard it was and is. And you just have to have a lot of rope. Sometimes you hang yourself with it. But, you come back to life and keep going. And you had that kind of stick-to-itiveness that even when you kind of got beat down by those things, that you were determined to get back up.
Yeah. I remember one of the first things you told me when I first started. I mean, and you're right, you were very direct. We always had that kind of relationship. And I was 24, 25. And I remember you saying, Lawrence is a small community. We're a small, very tight-knit, bank. And how you behave outside of work and the choices that you make are going to directly affect your reputation, our reputation. And I mean, I still remember that. And that really struck me. Doesn't mean I always made the right choices outside of work, but I learned, and you let me learn. It's hard to do that even as a parent,
right? Right.
Make the choice and learn the way that you're supposed to. You never protected me from failure, but you always made me feel like you were there to support. But I had to ask a lot of the times, which is important, I think. I hope that I passed that on as a leader, and I actually hadn't really thought a lot about that until this moment. So,
when I was on the school board I had a 4-year elected term, and 2 former school board members, one, I think they were both 3-term school board members, kind of took me underneath their wing and stuff. And I remember one time Alice Fowler said to me, she said, when I was first getting started, she said, I want you to do this. I want you to be prepared for the meetings, vote your conscience. That's what you can do. That's what you can defend. Do the best work you can. Be the last one to the meeting and be the first one to leave. You're not there to make friends. You're there to do work. Right?
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me, right? Because, people's attention follows authority.
Right.
And you can easily get caught up in thinking people really like you when they really just want your authority or need your authority or whatever, for maybe good purposes, not all to be bad purposes, but your life is easier when you keep a separation from those things. And I saw that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
You did a really good job, though, of keeping a balance with that, because we were a really tight-knit bank and culture. And I was telling Jarod on the way here, I mean, we worked with the same people for most of the time that I was there until our merger. And you always were a leader, and you always did keep that line. But at the same time, we always had fun together. We always felt like a family. And that's something that's, we also strive for in our office with our culture. And that's the example, honestly, that I have. But it is really hard to keep that balance. I mean, how did you do that?
Well, it has to be very intentional. And I didn't always do it, by the way. And, I would think sometimes, how can you work with somebody day in and day out for 20 years, or not 20 years, I'm being dramatic. How about like 5 years? And you know about their family and they know about yours, and you get to know, things, right? And you can't imagine your life not having that. And then they leave.
Yeah.
And you stay, or for whatever, there's a separation, and you just don't hear from them again. You have your life, you're going on about what you're doing, they're going on about what they're doing, and it's not necessarily intentional, it's just the way it is. And so if you make that your whole social life, if you will, then you're starting over, and then it becomes, you have emotions, and you're hurt and you miss people and all of that. And I think you just have to keep a little bit of a separation there. It's healthy.
Yeah. That is a fair point, though. It does feel like you're almost erased. I've had that feeling.
Yeah, everybody's experienced it, whether they admit it or not. But
everybody's in everybody's life for a reason or a season. And or what's the saying? A reason, a season, and they're gone, or whatever. But
yeah, I hadn't heard that, but that's a good one.
There's very few people that are constants in your life. And better get used to it.
Right. But I think that there are still the people like you, to me, that no matter what, I hadn't talked to you in years. And my oldest daughter is 21 and she was 2 when I met you. So I've known you for over half of my life or close to it. And I do feel like I could pick up the phone and call you and say, you know what, I'm really struggling as a leader or as a person. How would you handle this? And you would still answer the phone and we would still have a conversation just like it was 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah, of course I would.
And that's rare. And, you know, a model, I mean, I want to be like that to people. And it's really hard. I mean, it's hard not to get burned out when you are, you know, leading, creating a culture, genuinely wanting to care and not just be a manager. I hate that word. But also focusing on your own development and your own growth. And especially as a female, not saying yes to everything, not giving more than you know you can. I mean, I'm sure there are certain times where that's harder versus not. But how did you balance that? I mean, your kids were in high school, younger than that. You were involved in so many things in the community. You were running a market. We were all reporting to you at the time. How did you do that?
Well, I think a couple things. I think I had to pare it down to just the smallest of tasks. It didn't matter if you were getting the mail or interviewing somebody or making a loan or whatever. Just be true to yourself and do good work, you know, and be honest and real.
Yeah.
And so if you do that, you don't have any backtracking to do.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you don't spend your time doing that, and it makes it much more enjoyable. And one of the things I like to think about a lot is that, you know, Ruth Stevenson was a wonderful
Love Ruth.
mentor for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things she taught me, and I learned it too late in my career, was, you know, how to let somebody go. Right? I mean, that's so emotional. And she taught me to say, look, you know, if I was going to let you go, Danielle, I would say, you know, I think the world of you as a person, but you just can't work here right now and do that.
Yeah. That's a really good
And
way
what
of
can I
putting
do to help you on your next, you know, part of life or whatever it is, as opposed to taking it so personally and doing that. It's like, be positive, but just learn how to say it, be direct, and go on. And I wish I would have learned that one earlier,
Well,
right?
hard conversations
Because
like that are hard. I mean,
they're really hard, but they need to be had,
Yeah.
and they don't have to be so devastatingly personal, right? I think the other thing for me really was, and it was my personal life, my husband was always very, very supportive of my work. He also didn't really matter to him if I worked or not. So I had the benefit of being able to be true to myself, knowing that if it ended up that, you know, I died on the sword based on my principles, that my family was still going to eat the next day.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And as I look back on my career and things that I did, I mean, that's just the biggest gift anybody could have given me, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I just figured, you know, you're going to be away from your family for 8 hours, 9 hours a day. I'm just going to work as hard as I can to make it as beneficial as I can. So
Yeah.
it was just the little things really for me. And I like to have a lot of fun along the way. So
Well,
You got
we
you.
all do.
yeah. Don't take yourself too seriously.
That's the truth.
So I also remember when I left for a little while, and I remember walking in your office and telling you that I was going to leave and go somewhere else, and you were genuinely surprised. That's what you said to me. You were like, I support you, but I'm genuinely surprised. How did you, because this has happened to me, and it's hard to wrap your head around that and not make it personal. And I never, ever thought about it from your perspective until I was in your shoes in that situation. So you didn't react negatively. You were so supportive. And I think you did stay in touch with me. And because of that, it took me very little time to come back. But you handled that with such grace. But I can't imagine that it felt great. So how did you, I mean, what advice would you give me in that situation? Because it has happened, and it has happened to the extent that it's made me question my ability as a leader and my ability to be paying attention to what people are struggling with.
Well, boy, that's a big question
I know.
to answer.
Kind of caught you off guard there, didn't
Yeah,
you?
a little bit.
You can say anything, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person, no.
No, it's okay. One of the, you kind of think about, how do I want to live my life? Who do I want to be? And who do I want to be around to other people, right? I
Right.
think we all think those things. And I had read a story once, and it could have been made up for all I know, but it was about a grandmother who had saved some money and finally was able to buy new carpet. And she got some new carpet and blah, 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 blah. And fast forward, a grandkid had spilled a bowl of honey on her new carpet. But her first reaction was not to be mad about the carpet, which she thought she was going to be. It was to console the child and say, "It's okay, honey. It's okay. It's just carpet."
Yeah.
And it is such a simple story. But
Yeah.
to me, I thought, would I have that grace to automatically have compassion for whatever the circumstances are? And I could be a little harsh. I mean, I probably had to tame myself down a little bit and, watch what came out of my mouth and my body language and stuff like that. But I tried really hard to not react like that, to see that, well, that's just carpet. The more important thing is this person, and what they're going through.
Yeah.
And of course, I was sad, and I thought, I can never replace her. Who am I going to replace her with? This is not going to work. Because we had such a unique circumstance with the company, with the bank being a part owner and me managing you and then the other partner. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be tough. But, and then we just stayed in touch. And, sometimes you don't realize what you have until you're gone.
Yes, and it was literally like 4 months before I knew, like, okay, nope, not for me.
And then it takes a lot of confidence and vulnerability to go back and go, I made a wrong decision. I want to come back. And you don't beat people up in those circumstances, right? You just try to support them. So
I found one of the emails I found was from you and Ruth, and the heading of the email, or the subject line was, "It's time to come home."
Oh.
And I forgot about that too.
Yeah,
but
I remember that.
It was a home. And your leadership to me through that time, you did exactly what you just talked about earlier. You let me make that mistake. You supported me. I didn't know it was a mistake, but I learned from that, and I came back, and yes, it was humbling, and I wasn't sure even that was the right decision. There was a lot going on outside of work at that time. But you welcomed me back with open arms, and gave me even more of a platform for growth. You pushed me. I mean, that was kind of phase 2 of my career growth to me. I didn't want any help. You forced me to get help because I, want to do it all by myself. And I remember you saying, you have to let go. If you want to grow, you have to let go, and you have to trust other people. That doesn't always work out. But
sometimes it does.
Yeah. So that was, phase 2 for real. And then I was in the bank. And I don't know how much you remember from that phase. It was kind of an interesting time for me, but you continued to just show up for me. I told Jarod, I said, I remember I made a mistake on a loan, and I remember them all. Because they're usually pretty in your face when they happen. And I came to you and I said, I messed up. Here's what happened. Here's what the client is expecting. And of course, in that age, most of our clients all banked with us too. And I clearly remember you going to Wint and saying, we made this mistake. We have to own this, and we need to make it right with the client. You never blamed me. It was always a we. I mean,
that is huge. And that's super uncommon in this business.
Well, Wint, who owned our bank at the time, was unique in that he was an attorney, so he was our main counsel, and he owned the bank, right? And it was just so great working for him because he was very human and not necessarily risk adverse. So there was some gray area that he got to make the decision on because he knew the laws and what he could defend or whatever like that. But we all made mistakes. I mean,
sure.
Danielle made that mistake. I made other mistakes. And I had to go to Wint and say, yeah, maybe this didn't work out as well as we thought it might. And what are we going to do? And he, in turn, never made me feel like, well, here's where we find ourselves now. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Right? Because it is a process and it is learning. And if you just can't manage people by beating them over the head with a bigger bat.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So you got to figure it out and you got to move forward. What do we do to move forward?
Just that aspect of leadership, I think, and it starts at the top, and you cannot deny it, no matter how many ways you want to. You know, maybe there's a great leader within an organization, but, you know, that can be an isolated person. But when you have a structure where, and I really feel thankful to be where I am today because it's second best to what I had, and I value that because of where I was with you. But, you know, it starts with the top, you know, with someone like Wint who believed in people, believed in you. Those leadership skills you then passed off to me. And, you know, that's how I learned to lead. And I think that's just really the core of not just a person, but your office, your organization. And if there's a break in that chain of leadership, I mean, it kind of falls apart. I mean, we've seen this time and time again.
I remember when Wint came to me, and I was working at another bank, and he's like, I want to start a bank. I want it to be a girl bank, all girls.
I didn't know he said that.
And I thought, oh boy, okay, all right. Yeah, and so I really didn't take him serious at first. And then he kept talking to me a little bit over time and stuff. And so when I went to work there was only 3 employees. And we grew from there. And of course, we didn't stay all female for very long. But just the idea that he saw no difference from a competitive standpoint or, you know, an ability standpoint between a man and a woman was just so eye-opening to me. Because then, fast forward a few years, and he comes and said, well, I want you to be bank president. And I said, no, you don't. I'm a girl, right? And so we went through all those motions and stuff. And so all throughout my 20-plus years with him, you know, I would go, well, we need to get this business. Well, okay, but that business is decided on the golf course on Wednesdays, and that's Men's Day. There are no women there, right? What do you want me to do? And he'd go, that doesn't matter. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
But he would give me the rope to go figure it out. But, I mean, you know, to break into those roles. But he never, ever let me use that as an excuse.
Right.
And I think in turn, then I never let you use that as an excuse either.
Giving you
even
that
though
latitude.
It's a real one.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually hilarious. I didn't know any of that. It's still a male-dominated industry. And I learned to, like, show up as a leader, as a female, even though I work with great men. But you mentioned something about when you hired me, just having, you know, the ability to navigate being in that world and not be afraid to speak up. I mean, you were always very direct. You were always very, you know, I always knew you cared. But I watched you address tough situations, whether it was with me or someone else, and you always handled it very well. I think that being a woman, sometimes we can handle situations like that differently. But I also think that even still, when your leadership team is male and they say, what do you need me to do to help you? And your response is, I need you to do less and maybe get out of my way, which I've said is a little surprising to people. But I learned that a lot because I learned a lot of that from you. And I didn't know that you were teaching me that at the time. because, of course, we are considered to be more emotional. And I also do not go to work to be emotional and have drama and have fun. It's a job. We can love each other and care about each other and support each other when we are going through hard times. But this is a job, and we don't do drama. So thank you for imparting so many things to me that I use every single day. I mean, Maley, never, ever would I have, if you sat me in your office and said, 15 years from now, you're going to be at a different bank, you're going to be growing a market, you're going to have a team, all of these things, I would have laughed because it's actually hilarious still. I never, it wasn't my path for my future. I don't think I had one. You really helped me shape that.
Oh, good. Well, I would expect that from you. So thank you for doing it. I started working when I was 16 years old at the bank. And I went in for my interview because my uncle was on the board of the bank, and I was water skiing every day with my friends in the summer. And he called me up and he said, "You need to go see so-and-so at the bank." And I was like, "Why?" He says, "Well, you need to be more productive." So I went and I sat in this room, and there was like couches, and then he sat on the other side of the room. And the first thing he says to me is, "Maley, are you an introvert or an extrovert?" And I was like, "Oh man."
Do you even know that at that age?
So I said to him, "I'm sorry, Mr. So-and-so, I don't know what those words mean." And he goes, "Well, you're an extrovert." And I said, "Well, all right, I'll be that." And that was my interview. And that's when I started at the bank. So I just kind of grew into that. So same as you. If somebody would have told me that, I would have spent, 45 years doing that and had, been promoted up through the system to the different levels and had all those experience, I would have said, no way. I'm not going to be a banker.
Because you weren't fighting your way up there.
Yeah,
those doors opened for you. Mm-hmm. Because of who you are.
Because of the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It is the little things. They add up. It doesn't have to be flashy. And I think a lot of sales, especially, we think it should be flashy. How do we stand out? How are we different? Sometimes that's just showing up.
It's how you make people feel.
Yeah.
Right? People just want to be recognized. They want to be seen.
Yeah.
Valued. Doesn't take much to do that.
Pretty rare though. Still, it doesn't take much, but there's not a lot of people that do it.
There's not a lot of people that do it, and it doesn't take much. But I am a firm believer that at the end of the day, most people are good.
Yeah.
They may not know how to handle a situation or something like that, or whatever. But we tend to see the bad, and then we make that bigger than it is. And I think that was helpful for me too. I do think most people are good.
How did you ever feel like, you knew people needed to be seen and heard and recognized, but you go through a day and it eats you alive, and then it's 10 o'clock at night before you think about that again? How did you keep that balanced in phases of burnout? Because that's real. And as the leader,
mm-hmm.
if that is, the energy that you're putting out, which is so hard not to, how did you lead in those, and how did you continue to take the time to make people feel that way?
Well, I found for me that you can't make perfect the enemy of the good enough. It's one of my favorite sayings. Yeah. So if I swung and missed with somebody, which I did a lot, I would go back. Could be a week, 2 weeks, be a month, I don't know what it was, and say, you know what, I felt like I swung and I missed. I should have acknowledged this, or I should have done that, and I felt kind of bad about that, and I want you to know.
I like that.
And so I think if you're just real, it's probably bugging you more than them, because you see it as a missed opportunity to lead somebody or to pump them up. But if you go back later and you say, hey, I meant to do this and I didn't, and that's on me, but I thought you did great.
Yeah.
Then that's still a good compliment, and it still makes people feel good and seen and all of that. Yeah. So I think don't make the perfect enemy of the good enough. Even if you have to circle back, go back. Or in a team meeting,
Yeah.
Say, be vulnerable. I should have been doing X, Y, and Z, and I've been focused on something else, and I need to course correct. My bad. I'm sorry.
Never too late to do the right thing or say the right thing.
That's right.
Well, I think people really appreciate authenticity because they trust you if you are, even if that means you're flawed, because we are.
Now, one of the things that was hardest for me as a leader, and I remember I had a market manager one time who sat me down and told me that I was wrong, is that I'm like, I have an open door policy. Anybody can come here and say anything to me. I'm not. Tell me you don't like my outfit. Tell me I made a bad decision. Whatever. I'm not going to bite your head off. I want to learn and get better like anybody else. I have an open door policy. So then I would take it one step farther and say, well, if you didn't take the chance, or the opportunity to walk through my door and have a conversation with me, then that's on you, not me, because my door is open.
Right.
And this manager would say, we had a situation, somebody did something wrong, they didn't come tell me when they had an opportunity, and my expectation was that they would do that because I had told them, I have an open door policy. Come in, talk to me, let's figure it out. Even if you made a mistake, let's figure it out, blah, 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 blah. And he'd go, but you're kidding yourself. People are scared of your title. They're scared of your authority. They're not going to come in here and do that. And I was like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it.
Right.
Right? So you have to get people to trust that what you say is what you mean, even though I just said, well, they should know me. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. Well, guess where that got me? Not where I needed to go.
So how did you get them to trust that what you say is what you mean?
I don't know. I maybe never did in some cases. I don't know. But what you can only do that by examples.
Right.
Like you've said some today that, when you're faced with a situation, how you manage it, other people are watching.
Right.
And it is the little ones that build up into an opinion.
Right.
Or a personality or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's all a succession of little things that people are watching.
Yeah.
So I think you can only do it by example, by letting people watch and see who you are, and then they'll get trust. But that was a hard one for me. It's like, well, I said it. I meant it.
Not everyone is wired that way.
No,
Well, a
and
lot of
not
people say
everybody would
things they
say
don't
that
mean.
back to me.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of people say things they don't mean too. So
Right,
it's,
right. But for somebody that reported to me to say, you're wrong, that took some guts too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling me, because I thought I was right.
Well, you were probably both, depending on the person.
And or.
Two things can be true.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Lots of things to think about. Leadership is a choice.
It is a choice.
It is not the easy path always when, people are watching you. And everything you do or don't do is being seen. And it's not about a spreadsheet or filling a desk. It's about who you are. And there's a lot of obstacles in the way. And I'm really grateful to have had so many people in my life that taught me how to navigate that. My dad is another one. He taught me how to be an extrovert, even though I'm an introvert. But I can't even imagine how many other people feel like I do. So
that's
truly,
sweet of you to say. Thank you.
yeah. And I use a lot of those things every day. You just have to put up with me. So
Oh, it's not that big of a chore. Usually. No, it's great. Well, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Are there any other key takeaways, or?
Well, I would just say it's been my honor to know Danielle and to watch her grow and all the people that she's helped. Think of all the people that you have helped.
Mm-hmm.
Navigate a system they don't know anything about, achieve their dreams of being a homeowner, and making them feel valued, and that all their work that they did to save money or correct their credit bureau or whatever it is to get to where they are is just, it's life changing for those people. And people at the end of the day are intimidated by banks and
Yeah.
bankers. So,
Yes.
you have to lower that, and you've done that. So,
Yeah.
congratulations.
On a
Proud of
different
you.
level now too. I mean, this is a different age than it was then, and so just the evolution of how all of that has changed is, it's difficult, but
Just keep perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you show up, you do the right thing, everything just kind of works out. You have to be intentional about it, but
And if it doesn't work out and you did your best, I mean, it's okay to say, I did the best I could. Didn't work out the way I wanted to, and next time I may do something different. That's okay.
mhm,
It's real.
that's growth.
hmm
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
so in closing, if you could give someone, anyone, in a leadership role as a woman, especially, some
Or a
ending
man.
advice, or a man, because you know what, there sometimes it's role reversal.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's different than it used to be, but what would your parting words or advice be, or if you could chalk all of the things that you did up to one thing or two things, what would those be?
Well, I still go back to the school board thing. I think it's integrity. And I think that if you are real and have integrity and are intentional, then you can make it through anything. And lay your head down on the pillow at night and know you did the best you could,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And in situations where you didn't, you circle back and go, I'm sorry. I could have done better. And I think that's how you do it. But you got to be able to lay your head down on the pillow at night
Yeah,
and know that you stayed true to your values
Yeah.
and that you treated people well. And if you do those things, then I think it generally will work out.
love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maley. It was great to meet you and great to hear the impact you've had on Danielle. I get to see it every day, and I appreciate it. It's
Well,
great.
good.
It's been
Well-
great talking to you.
Keep rocking, kids.
So, all right. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mortgage Momentum. If you took any value from this, please like and share. Join the wave of followers we have.
Please add to the numbers.
Add to the numbers. Jump on the bus. And we'll see you next time on Mortgage Momentum. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Mortgage Momentum. If you got value from today's episode, subscribe, share it with a friend, leave a review, or email us feedback at mortgagemomentum@bell.bank.
We always welcome comments, feedback, and suggestions for future shows. Thanks for joining us, and keep your momentum going. Until next time.